Today in State History, we're going to be covering pages 27 and 29 of your book, and we're going to be talking about some famous Connecticut landmarks. I don't know if you know some famous Connecticut landmarks. Maybe you and your family took some trips, and you can let me know about that in the comments or in Google Classroom if you know of some. We're only going to talk about 8 today, but I've heard of some other ones, and I think I knew of some other ones as well. And even Mrs. Wright, the library teacher we had at the beginning of the year, she told me about this house in Connecticut that's a historical landmark, and it was actually one of the homes where they had the Underground Railroad. How cool is that? Do you remember the Underground Railroad? That was during the Civil War when the slaves tried to escape from the South to the North to get some freedom, or wherever they were going to get freedom. There were a series of houses that they would go along the way, and like a route or a trail that they would take. And this is called the Underground Railroad, and there's actually one of those houses in Connecticut where they could hide and be safe. But we're going to talk about 8 different places today, and if you're writing in your book, pick 2, and if not, just listen and hear about some of these places, and I bet you even know some of these places. So let's get started. This first place right here, I'm going to hold this right here. This is Gillette Castle in East Haddam. William Gillette was born in Hartford, Connecticut in 1853. As a child, he was captivated with the stage and acting pursuits. At age 13, he had a small stage built and amused himself by frequently giving puppet shows for his friends. At age 20, he left home to follow his chosen career. He is most famous for his portrayal of Sherlock Holmes. Besides his activities as an actor and playwright, Gillette invented many trick stage props and lighting techniques, and often produced and directed the plays in which he appeared. His last performance was at the Bushnell in Hartford in 1936, the year before his death. Gillette designed the castle and most of its contents personally, periodically checking every phase of their construction. Built of local fieldstone supported by a steel framework, it took 20 men 5 years to complete the main structure. This has been built since 1919, so it's 101 years old. Our next one that we're going to talk about is the Mark Twain House. I've actually been there. I've actually been to the castle, and I've been to the Mark Twain House. Can you see the Mark Twain House? Oops. The Mark Twain House is in Hartford. Samuel Longhorn Clemens is best known by his pen name. So you might have heard of Mark Twain. His major works include The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Prince and the Pauper, Life on the Mississippi, Huckleberry Finn, and A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. The Mark Twain House was his home from 1871 to 1891. He moved to Hartford to be closer to his publisher, the American Publishing Company. The architectural style of the 19-room house is Victorian Gothic. The house was built on 3.5 acres of land and designed with 7 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, a carriage house, and plant-filled conservatory. Twain loved living in the house, partly because he knew many different authors in his Hartford neighborhood, such as Harriet Beecher Stowe and Isabel Beecher Hooker. Also, he would stop in to visit his friend actor William Gillette at Gillette Castle. That's interesting. William Gillette and Mark Twain were friends. Our next place is a really pretty place. And this is the West Cornwall Covered Bridge in West Cornwall. The bridge is on Route 128 and passes over the Housatonic River between Cornwall and Sharon. It is a covered timber town lattice truss, 172 feet in length, built in 1864. The deck consists of 2 large side beams and a 3/8-inch thick top plate reinforced by 9-inch U-shaped ribs, all welded together. Floodwaters in 1955 nearly swept the bridge away. In 1973, the Connecticut Department of Transportation rehabilitated the bridge by inserting a concealed steel deck to bear the weight of the traffic. The bridge was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1975. The bridge is one of the 3 remaining covered bridges in Connecticut, a state where hundreds once exist. The other 2 are Bulls Ridge in Kent and Comstock Bridge in Colchester, East Hampton. So maybe you've seen this place before. I don't know. Now the next place is a place that we go every year for 4th grade on a field trip. This area is Mystic. We go to the aquarium, but this is Mystic Seaport. Mystic Seaport. Mystic Seaport is a maritime museum located along the banks of the Mystic River. It is notable both for its collection of sailing ships and boats and for the recreation of the entire 19th century seaport, consisting of over 60 original buildings, most of them rare commercial structures moved to the 37-acre site and restored. In 1941, the museum acquired the Charles W. Morgan, the only surviving wooden sailing whaler. One of the main buildings of the museum is the preservation shipyard, where traditional tools and techniques are used to preserve the museum's collection of historical vessels, including a recreation of the Amistad. One intriguing exhibit is a 1 to 128th scale model of the entire Mystic River area in 1870. A planetarium that helps to show and teach visitors how the stars were used by seamen for navigation. I want to go to a planetarium. Were you able to see this one? I hope so. Alright. So we've talked about 4 places. This next one is kind of cool. This is Dinosaur State Park. I decided I need to go here actually. It's pretty, huh? Dinosaur State Park. The Connecticut Valley has a long history of fossil track discoveries. Outstanding specimens uncovered in the 19th century brownstone quarries found their way into museums throughout the world. A new chapter in the history of such discoveries was written in 1966 when 2,000 dinosaur tracks were accidentally uncovered during excavation for a new state building in Rocky Hill. The remarkable site became Dinosaur State Park. 500 of the tracks are now enclosed within the Exhibit Center geodesic dome. The remaining 1,500 are buried for preservation. Isn't this cool? This is a landmark. And we don't believe in evolution, but that's really cool about the dinosaurs. They were saying that this is 200 million years old, and we know that's not true. Okay. The next one. We went here for a field trip last year. We would have gone this year. The Old State House. Designed by Charles Bulfinch and sold in 1796, the Old State House is the oldest state house in the nation. The building opened in May 1796. Oliver Wolcott, signer of the Declaration of Independence, was the first governor to serve here. The building was the seat of state government until 1878 when the present Capitol was opened. Lafayette made a citizen here. Many American presidents, including Jackson, Monroe, Johnson, Ford, and Bush, have visited. President Carter gave the USS Nautilus to Connecticut in a ceremony at the Old State House in 1981. The trials of Sink and the Amistad opened here in 1839. P.T. Barnum served in the legislature here, and notables such as Mark Twain, Charles Dickens, Samuel Colt, and Harriet Beecher Stowe visited the building. The Old State House is a registered landmark. Now we're going to prison. This is the old Newgate Prison and Copper Mine. I need to go here. The prison was originally a copper mine which opened in 1705. After mining operations proved unprofitable, the colony of Connecticut converted it to a prison, like its London namesake, Newgate Prison. The first prisoner, John Hinson, was committed for burglary on December 22, 1773. He escaped 18 days later. Tories and Loyalists were held here during the Revolutionary War. In 1790, it became a state prison, the first such in America. Considered costly to run and inhumane, the prison was closed in 1827. Attempts to revive mining failed. Since the 1860s, it has been mainly a tourist attraction. In 1972, Old Newgate Prison was declared a National Historic Landmark. And let's talk about our last place. This is the Kent Iron Furnace. On the grounds of the Sloane Stanley Museum in Kent was a major part of the significant iron industry in the upper Housatonic Valley in the 19th century. It is over 30 feet tall. The blast furnace operated for nearly 70 years from 1825 to 1892. It took approximately 138 bushels of charcoal, 2,612 pounds of ore, and 432 pounds of limestone flux to make 1 ton of pig iron. Unless the water source is frozen or the level too low in the summer, ironworks were in operation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In 1870, it was reported in the Litchfield Inquirer that the Kent furnace produced 50 tons of pig iron in a week. The iron's grade made it especially appropriate for the production of train car wheels. And that is the Kent furnace. Now, you just learned about 8 places, and I hope that you could tell me about some places that you know that are famous or historical landmarks or they're old parts of history. I believe there is like a Nathan Hale house I think I've seen, and maybe a Webster house. Those are 2 that maybe I'm thinking of, but maybe you can think of some other historical landmarks. All right, bye.